Oh boy, indeed. Did the Miami Heat's trade offer or what a package would look like for Kevin Durant get leaked by NBA insider Zach Lowe? Well, he mentioned a lot surrounding Miami and KD on his podcast that came out last night. I suggest you go listen because there was a ton of information on Kevin Durant as a whole, but we'll focus on what he said about the Miami Heat and everything in between. I am Nic Rohloff. But this is why you subscribe and this is why you turn on your notifications because we're dropping daily content. And whenever a move happens in the NBA, we'll talk about it. Whenever a move happens around the Miami Heat, we'll talk about it. So don't miss a thing. Subscribe and turn on notifications to all so you don't miss any content we put out. We'll start here before we get into what actually was said by Zach Lowe. Brian Windhorst went on Get Up ESPN this morning and said that a trade for Kevin Durant is likely happening within the next 2 weeks. Now, I don't think this should come as any surprise. We've seen Shams Charania already report that the week before the NBA draft is going to get absolutely bonkers. So when we're talking about the draft, that's literally next Wednesday to the following Wednesday. I mean, we are literally 15 days away from the draft. So next week is when I think things are going to start picking up. And then obviously the couple days, the 48 hours before Wednesday, June 25th, a lot of stuff is going to happen as well. All right, so now that we kind of know when a trade could actually happen, it will happen within the next 2 weeks. I think it's abundantly clear that Phoenix wants to get this over with before the NBA draft on June 25th, so they know what they have going into that. But either way, Zach Lowe does believe the Heat will get involved with a KD trade. He mentioned Minnesota, mentioned New York, mentioned the Houston Rockets, San Antonio Spurs, and said that he believes Miami will go whale hunting for Durant because they could talk themselves into a trio of KD, Bam, and Herro in a weekend Eastern Conference. But he also kind of shared some light on what he thinks a trade package would ultimately look like, which is why we're making this show. And this is where he went with things. He said it's likely going to be Andrew Wiggins, Jovic, or Jaquez Jr., so he thinks the Heat would only offer one, expiring contracts, whether it be Terry Rozier or Duncan Robinson alongside Andrew Wiggins, one first-round pick. He only mentioned one, so likely would be that 20th overall pick in this year's draft and not anything in the future, what I actually don't mind. But he also mentioned that the Brooklyn Nets could be involved as a third team if the Heat actually want to get KD to the 305. Why did he say that? Well, Miami will desperately try to keep Kel'el Ware. That's what Zach Lowe said. Now, there is no guarantee that they would be able to acquire Kevin Durant without including Ware. He kind of alluded to that. But he said Riley in that front office will try like hell, I think was the exact verbiage, to keep Kel'el in Miami after a promising rookie season. And that's where Brooklyn may come in because the Suns have been very open about wanting a long-term piece at center to pair up with the rest of their roster ever since they've lost DeAndre Ayton. Well, Kel'el Ware would obviously be a coveted player from Miami in a Kevin Durant trade, but if the Heat want to keep him, I should say, they'll try to maybe rope in Brooklyn to give them some capital to send Nic Claxton to Phoenix so Miami could ultimately keep Kel'el Ware. So if you look at what Zach Lowe said, this is what a trade could actually look like when it comes to fruition. When you think about financial side of things, what Lowe said, this is what a three-teamer could look like. The Heat get Kevin Durant. The Suns get two players, Andrew Wiggins and Nic Claxton, no draft capital because Wiggins and Claxton, if we're going to be honest, would probably benefit that Suns roster than just Kevin Durant at this point and let Devin Booker go back to being that lead ball handler. And then in order to get Claxton to Phoenix, I think the Nets would get involved here. They'd get salary for Claxton and Duncan Robinson, and then they would get Nikola Jovic from Miami, and then the first-round pick from the Heat at that 20th overall spot. Also important to note, Brooklyn has the 19th pick in the draft. They could either do this trade and have back-to-back picks at 19 or 20, or package those two to try to move up into the lottery, which there is a lot of buzz that they would like to acquire a second lottery pick. So that would give Brooklyn a lot of incentive to make this deal. So, from a pure Miami Heat perspective, would you make this trade? Type A for accept or type D for decline? I mean, the Heat, we've talked about the package likely being Wiggins, Jovic, Duncan, and a first-round pick for KD this entire time. So it's the same deal for Miami that we've always discussed. There is just a third team involved that makes Phoenix maybe more happy to take back Nic Claxton rather than Jovic, Duncan, in a first-round pick. I actually do see this as a realistic package. I do. I've talked about it. I mean, if I'm the Heat and I'm not offering Kel'el Ware, that is what my only offer will be for KD. We give you a young player in Jovic, salary in Duncan Robinson, a solid player in Andrew Wiggins, and 1 first-round pick at the 20th overall spot. I'm not offering anything more than that. I've talked about it if the Heat actually offer Kel'el Ware. I'm not offering any draft capital alongside Kel'el. So if you are someone who wants to keep Ware, that is a package that I think we could see, whether it is just Miami and Phoenix doing it, or if you rope in Brooklyn and have the Heat send out the same amount. It's just that Nic Claxton ends up going to the Phoenix Suns. I think see that as a very realistic opportunity. And the Brooklyn Nets could be important for Miami if they want KD. I mean, kind of briefly talked about it just a second ago, but Phoenix desperately wants a center. And it's very clear around league circles they want a new center. So if they do want a new center, well, and the Heat want to keep Kel'el Ware, they'll probably need Brooklyn unless there's another third team out there that has a center that is coveted by the Suns and would be willing to play ball in a 3-team trade like that. But either way, let's talk about it more from the Heat's perspective now, because if you make that trade, this is what your lineup would look like going into the 2025 season. Now, I am also putting down Davion Mitchell re-signing with the Miami Heat in restricted free agency and being your point guard of the season. So I think you would have Davion, Herro, Bam, Ware, and Kevin Durant with a bench that would look like Jaime Jaquez Jr., Terry Rozier, Haywood Highsmith, Pallel Larson, and Kyle Anderson. You also have Kashad Johnson and Kevin Love under contract, but you'd likely fill out the back end of your rotation with vet min guys. I'll be honest, I think this team competes in the Eastern Conference. We've talked about it. The Celtics are going to take a step back. They're offloading salaries like potentially Kristaps Porzingis, potentially Drew Holiday. Jason Tatum's going to be out for all, if not most, of the 25-26 season. Boston's going to take a step back, at least for this upcoming year. The Bucks, if they trade Giannis, are obviously going to be terrible. If they keep Giannis, I still don't think they're going to be very good this season because no Damian Lillard and the rest of that roster is not very talented. So you're only competing against Detroit, New York, Indiana, and Cleveland. I think that team could absolutely go wire to wire or at least compete for a conference title. Can they beat a team like the Oklahoma City Thunder? Unsure of that. But could they beat those teams in the East? Yeah, I think anything could happen in a given 7-game series. And also, if you make that trade, there could be more moves to come after the fact. Why? Well, you would still have some assets to move. You talk about Kyle Anderson's contract being immovable. Terry Rozier's expiring. You still have Jaime Jaquez Jr. to deal. Maybe Pallel Larson. You would keep all of your future first-round picks because in that trade, you only gave up the 20th overall selection. So you would have future picks to trade, some young players in Jaquez and Larson, expiring salary in Kyle Anderson and Terry Rozier. And even if you did not make a trade to complement the roster, you would also still have flexibility going forward with those draft picks of the future. Like, you're not losing your flexibility. And with Kevin Durant being a $54 million expiring salary, you could wait to extend him and just say, hey, if it doesn't work out, we'll have a lot of money off the books and be a team that could offer a max contract this upcoming offseason. Not this one, but the one after in NBA free agency. So you'd still have a lot of flexibility in the future if you made that Kevin Durant trade. All right, more to come here on the conversation of KD. But, hey, the NBA draft is just a couple weeks away. Get your Miami Heat draft hats. They've got black hats in curved form. They have white hats in flat brim. They also have draft hats that are bucket hats. That's kind of sick. I am like 50-50 on if I'm buying one. I am really dang close to doing it. And I can't wait to see players walk the stage in a draft bucket hat. I hope they do. That's going to be sick. Get yours today at chatsports.com/Heat2025 draft hats. That link is in the description and comments of today's video. One more time, chatsports.com/Heat2025 draft hats. Although I talked about what a package could look like and what the roster would look like with KD, I still am not that optimistic that a trade ultimately comes to fruition for Miami when it comes to Kevin Durant over the next 2 weeks. Why is that? Well, it's because the teams that are consistently mentioned that will show interest in a Durant deal. Take away Miami, the top 4 teams are the New York Knicks, the San Antonio Spurs, Minnesota Timberwolves, and Houston Rockets. I truly believe all 4 of these teams have a better trade package to this Phoenix Suns than the Miami Heat. Now, I have had different feelings on like a Giannis trade package where I think Miami would be some like a better offer than a Knicks, than a Timberwolves, not San Antonio or Houston. But when it comes to KD, I just don't know if that's actually the case. So I want to go through the other teams probably and most likely offer for KD and show why I don't think the Heat would be able to top that. Well, let's start with the New York Knicks here. If they wanted KD, they would likely trade Karl-Anthony Towns. Why? Well, it's because he's making the same amount of money as KD, and it would be most likely be the swap there. Plus, Phoenix wants a big man, although I don't think Cat is a 5 anymore, and he's most likely a 4. He could still man that front court and have him be the second man to Devin Booker if they still want to compete over in Phoenix. So I think Cat, Ariel Ekporti to kind of make the salary works, and then 2 second-round picks to get KD to New York. Will the Knicks do that? I don't know. Their front court would then be KD at the 4, Mitchell Robinson at the 5, and then you still have that Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby duo at the 2 or 3 to complement Jalen Brunson. That's certainly a really dangerous team. New York, there's conflicting reports on if they're interested. Begley says he does not think the Knicks will trade for KD. Everybody else in the national media says they think the Knicks will show interest. Although this trade package is interesting, I don't know if Phoenix would be in because they might want some draft capital. Who knows? But that is a package that I don't think Miami would be willing to top. All right, let's move over to the Minnesota Timberwolves now. They get KD for Rudy Gobert, Dante DiVincenzo, Rob Dillingham. This trade package was actually mentioned by Zach Lowe and company on that podcast that I referred to on today's show. I think this is a package the Phoenix Suns would be very intrigued with. They get a young point guard that was a lottery pick, top 10 to be exact last year in Dillingham. DiVincenzo to be that off-the-bench shooter. You would likely have Dillingham and Devin Booker start alongside each other. And then they get that center that they've been looking for in Rudy Gobert. You have Gobert man that defense. You have DiVincenzo, Dillingham, and then D-Book as your backcourt rotation. Still have Bradley Beal as well. That's an offer that I don't know if Miami could top due to Rudy Gobert and Rob Dillingham. Those are the 2 highlighted players that are in this package. All right, let's move over to the Spurs trade, which, I mean, if they offer this, it's over for Miami. I think it's over for, like, every team if the Suns actually could get this. I mean, Devin Vassell is the best player that we've talked about to this point in trade packages. Like, I know Cat is better now. Gobert is probably better now. But with Vassell being 24, 25 years old and ascending, I mean, that's a player that I would just imagine the Spurs wouldn't want to give up, but the Suns would be very happy getting him. You get Barnes and Sohan, another young player, Barnes for salary purposes, plus the Suns would get a lottery pick. They don't get a center in this trade, but they could use the 14th pick on a center, whether it would be a Derek Queen, whether it be a Malawach if he fell. You can go Thomas Sorber. You go Asa Newell. They would have so many options to get a center of the future with that 14th pick. If the Spurs offered this to the Phoenix, I think it's over for everybody else. The Rockets will round out the trade packages here. This one's tough because you would imagine they would trade Jalen Green, but if they traded Jalen Green for him, they would have to then attach both Jabari Smith and Reed Shepherd or Jabari Smith and Jock Landale for salary purposes, and would they want to do that? So maybe you would see a Jalen Green, Jabari Smith, and a first-round pick package, but then that's a very interesting team that could be in on the KD sweepstakes. But there's a lot of buzz out there that they actually don't want to give up much of their young core. So what I believe Houston would offer to keep their young core intact and just say, hey, we'll add KD just for the 10th pick. That's basically what this is, right? Van Vliet, Landale for salary, and the 10th overall pick, which is actually originally the Suns selection. And like I said, the reason why Phoenix could be interested in this, they take on Van Vliet's 1-year, $44 million contract. That becomes expiring next offseason, obviously. You get the 10th pick where they can go with a center of their choice to add to that front court. I think the Suns would likely try to do the Spurs package or heck even like the Timberwolves or Knicks package over this Houston trade package, but it certainly is a trade that I think they might prefer over the Miami Heat's offer for the Kevin Durant. All right, predict it. Who trades for KD? Let me know your thoughts. I showed 5 different trades. The one for Miami and then the 4 from the teams that the Heat are competing against. Who trades for KD? Let me know your thoughts down below. My personal prediction, it's San Antonio. There's just been so much buzz around the Spurs trading for KD, and if they can do it while keeping Stephon Castle, keeping that number 2 overall pick, there just simply is no downside. You now have a front court of Wembanyama at the 5, KD at the 4, put Stephon Castle at the 3, Dylan Harper at the 2, and De'Aaron Fox at the 1. Like, are you shitting me? That team is unbelievable. And then you could even do something different to where you start maybe a better fit right away at number 2 and at this 2-guard spot, and then have Dylan Harper come off the bench as your lead guard as a rookie. Like, I mean, that team just could win a title next year, in all honesty, if Wembanyama takes a step up and is able to stay healthy. I just don't know how the Heat have the top package, if we're going to be honest. Like, I would rather have Devin Vassell, the 14th pick, in salary, without a question. I would rather have Cat, probably. I'd rather have Gobert, Dillingham, and Dante DiVincenzo. I'd probably rather have the 10th overall pick in salary. Like, I just don't know how the Heat ultimately get Kevin Durant. And even if KD says he wants to go to Miami, that's his number 1 choice. Like, the Suns don't have to oblige from that. And just remember, Jimmy Butler said Phoenix was his top choice, and they couldn't get a trade done with Miami. Excuse me. This is why you stay around for the end of the video. Point is, I don't know how the Heat have the top package for Kevin Durant. But make sure you do subscribe, because when KD gets traded, we'll break that down. Whether it's to Miami, we'll be going live and having a party. Whether it's to a different team, we'll react and talk about what's next for the Heat. So subscribe for daily Miami Heat content.